2 Country Radio.
Find us on Facebook and Twitter. We play more music every hour, every day. 2 Country Radio. Turn on, tune in.
This is Toby Keith.
Hello, Toby. Eddie here. How are you?
Great, Eddie. How are you?
Very well, and such a pleasure to talk to you. It's kind of a bit of a fanboy, I'm afraid.
That's okay with me.
Toby, you're speaking to Eddie Corrick here at 2 Country Radio in the UK. Everybody that works for the station is a country music fan, and they're all insanely jealous of me sitting here talking to you. So thank you very much for taking my phone call.
You're absolutely welcome.
Can I start perhaps just congratulating you on your induction into the Songwriters Hall of Fame back in June? I know it was a while back, but I don't often get the opportunity to congratulate people like you for doing that. Can I perhaps ask you how you felt when you were told you were going to be inducted?
Well, it was a thrill. It's something that usually happens to you way later in life, and I knew that this wasn't the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. This was the Worldwide Songwriters Hall of Fame, and all genre. So everybody from all the fantastic songwriters from all over the world and in all genres have been inducted in, and there's very few, only a handful of great big name country music people in that Hall of Fame. And I had looked once upon a time and dreamed of someday being in there, and I saw Cash and Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn and Hank Williams and just a handful. And I thought, well, they'll probably never even look at me. And here I am 21 years into my career, and they put me on the nomination list. And I thought, well, I'll sit on the nomination list for many years to come till somebody might vote me in someday. And the first year on the ballot, I went in. So I think that's just a reflection of all the hard work we did over the last 20 years. I tried to put an album out every year, and I tried to write all the songs for the most part, 90% of them, and it just it paid off. But it was I don't have to have it. After getting that award, I don't ever have to have another one. It doesn't matter now.
It's an awesome achievement, isn't it? It really is. And as you said, it's not the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, it is the worldwide, so across all genres. So once again, congratulations on that. But it doesn't really surprise me. You know, as you said, you put out an album about once a year. I think the very first one I bought was Boomtown back in the early 90s, 94, somewhere around there. And
dead on, 94.
Oh, thank you. And, you know, I think I've bought a new album just about every year since then, based mainly on the consistency of the album. We know what we're getting with the Toby Keith album. We're getting a quality product.
Well, I think I've never had a theme. People, will ask me time to time. They'll say, what were you doing? This album's, this certain album at any particular time is up-tempo, or it's all drinking songs, or it's love songs, or it's never had a theme. It's just, I write 50 or to 75 songs a year, and we go in to record, and we try to figure out which ones we think are the best. Which ones did we do, or which ones did I do my best work on, and then I record them, and then I narrow it down to what an album is, and I put it out. So if there's ever any similarity to a theme, it's just pure luck, because it's a pretty simple process. I just write all year long. And I always know when I put this album out, like right now I'm putting this album out, knowing that next year I've already got most of the songs written right now. So when I go in the spring and start recording, I'm always ahead of the game.
Does that explain why you put a new album out? Well, I think the last half a dozen have all been released in October.
Yeah.
Does that explain the consistency of that? You kind of already know where you're going.
Yeah, you just take. You're only going to get 3 or 4 singles on every album, and when I go in the spring and start recording, before I try to get all my recording done before my tour starts in June, and then I tour from June to October in the States, and then I really don't have time to record then, so I try to get my recording done for the most part by the time the tour starts, and then by the time I get to the summer and do my tour, we're working a single off of that album. We start somewhere in there putting something out for the next album, and then try to get it growing by the fall, and then come about October before Christmas and the holidays and start start putting something in the market.
The new album, I had a good chance to listen to it now. Reading the liner notes, I'm talking to a guy who's inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. The very first song on his new album, 35 Mile Per Hour Town, isn't written by Toby Keith. How does that happen, Toby?
Well, I had a song retreat. Bob DePiro wrote it, and I have a songwriters retreat at my vacation house, and I bring 4 or 5 writers down there, and we hang out 4 or 5 days. And we get up in the morning, we draw straws, and put different songwriters with different songwriters, and we sit around for 4 or 5 days and see what really good songwriters can come up with, you know? And Bob had that song, and he said, you got to hear this song, you know? So he sent it to me, and it sounded like a 3/4 tempo waltz time version of I Love This Bar. So I was like, we're back in the bar again. I haven't been in there in 10 years. And I Love This Bar was a big song, and this is the waltz version. And I could just picture people holding their beer mugs in there and swaying back and forth to that waltz and singing, we're just drunk Americans. But it's kind of a, hey, everybody needs to get along song, you know? And so we recorded it, and I liked it so much that I put it on the album, and I put it up front for out of respect to the other songwriters.
Do you know, I think it works. I'm not a drunk American, but I'm quite happy to sing along with the lyrics to that song. It's just one of those that a country music fan is going to love everything about it, I think. The title track, 35 Mile Per Hour Town. When I first heard that, I thought there was something really familiar about that. But, you know, it's a storytelling song. You tell the story, but somehow it just feels like almost self-reflective. Well,
here's how that song evolved. The guy wrote several songs with Bobby Pinson. He said he was coming back from Alabama back to Tennessee, and he was supposed to have been there at a certain time. And he said, I was late because I had to slow down and go through all those 35-mile-an-hour towns. He said, I thought I won't write a song about it. And once we got on the idea of writing it, it became more about everything you see in those small towns in the States still look like towns used to look when we were kids. And so we started reflecting on all the things that have changed since we've become grown and mature. And you're like, one thing would be video games keep kids inside the house. Whereas we would come home from school and everybody would get out in front of the houses in the grass and play football.
Yep.
And you could stay out, ride your bike, play football. If it was basketball season, we played basketball. If it was baseball season, we played baseball. And the only really rule that parents had was when the street lights came on at night, or when your mother turned the front porch light on, that meant it was time for you to come in. And when we just started trying to find all of those little things that were different. And now people are afraid to let their kids ride their bike out of the neighborhood. We used to ride our bike all over the town, you know?
Yeah.
And there's just so much danger and violence out there that people don't want their kids doing any of that stuff anymore. So we just tried to capture all of those things that have changed in the world since we lived in a 35-mile-an-hour town.
Yeah, again, it's a song that works because, as you were talking there, I was nodding my head, kind of thinking back to my childhood, and I think everybody will be doing exactly the same thing. The new singles...
yeah, Beautiful Stranger.
Again, another really nice song, I think.
Well, I held it. I don't do very many ballads. And, in 95, I had one that was a #1 called That Blue Moon Ever Shine on You. I had one, She Never Cried in Front of Me. I had a real big one called You Shouldn't Kiss Me Like This. I don't do very many, but when I do, we're real particular and selective with it. And I had this song 3 albums ago, and I saw that it was not going to get a chance to be heard because the singles on the album were up-tempo, and we'd already decided on what the single was going to be. So I just kept holding it and waiting for the perfect spot, and this was the perfect spot because you want to do it. We feel like we always want to put a ballad out, not in the summertime when we're up running around rocking and rolling. You know, our shows are real big and loud and hard driving. I didn't want to be out promoting that and saying, here's my new single, and we're going to slow this thing way down. It's a roller coaster out there. So I said, I tour from June to October. So since I'm going to be off the road here for 4 or 5 months, then I thought this was a perfect time. So I put it on this album where it would have a shot at being heard.
It's a nice song, and you're talking about being wild and out on tour. I've had the pleasure of seeing you perform live several times now, and yeah, first time I saw you, I couldn't believe how big you are on the stage. For a start, you own the stage. The second thing is your love and respect for veterans. I was a cop for 30 years before I came into this, and it just kind of, I'll be honest, it brought a tear to my eye.
Well, thanks. I have a tremendous amount of respect for veterans and the police force and firefighters and people like that who are on call, volunteer to go take care of that stuff. And there's not, you get painted with a political brush everywhere you go, but it has nothing to do with politics with me. And instead of fighting that fight in the political world, I just wear that like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? I just say, hey, paint me however you want to paint me, but it doesn't matter to me. I think they're the greatest people on earth, I really believe that.
I can't disagree with you, and I thank you for the songs. It's a courtesy of the Red, White and Blue and American Soldiers that still regularly in play, certainly here in the UK. And again, the songs I'll quite happily howl along with. So from a vet in the UK, it's nice to sort of to see that kind of...
Well, it's nice to talk. It's nice to talk to a vet.
Thank you, Toby. The current tour... is Good Times and Pickup Lines. How does it come to be called? Yeah. How does it come to be called that?
Well, I've been sponsored by my tour has been sponsored by over 12 years by Ford Trucks, and they have to approve whatever. Since it's their tour, they wrap all the trucks and promote the tour with millions of dollars, and so they always like to have something in the title, Ford Truck, So they throw about 30 at me. And then we have to land on a new one every time. And so pickup lines is something that happens in bars, and people have written songs about pickup lines and things, but the pickup kind of covers the pickup truck. So they kind of agree on all of that, and then we all settle on it, come with some slogan, and then you have to call your tour something. So it's more to do with our promotion with Ford than it is about the album or anything.
The fact is, but last decade or so, you've been playing to more than 1 million people every year. So Good Times is probably about right, isn't it? I think.
Well, most of my shows are outdoor, so you got a 25, 30,000 seat venue, and the amphitheaters in the States are owned by one company, and they're all very similar. They're very similar, and we call them shed dates. They have 6,000 or 7,000 that are covered in the pavilion, and then you have a grass hill. And then however many they can pile up there is what your ticket count is. And it's a really live outdoor setting. People come and do the tailgating at the first. So 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there'll be people barbecuing and drinking and stuff out in the parking lot at their vehicles. And then about 6 o'clock, they open the gates and people move in, and then the opening acts all come on. And it grows up till 9 o'clock. And when I get on the stage, they're primed. You know what I mean? So it's a very rowdy crowd, and it's a very hard driving, loud, fun night. So with that setting, it fits me real good. That's where I found my home in the States years ago, was at those amphitheaters.
It must have been awesome the first time you played or stepped onto a stage in front of an audience like that. I believe you come from a fairly small town, 80,000 people or something, and to stand out in front of an audience that's bigger than your population of your hometown must be incredible.
Yeah. It was a big thrill when I came over there, too, first time. I remember, they don't have the amount of country radio stations and country venues over there. And I said, well, we'll go try it. The way we ended up going there was I was coming back from a USO tour playing for the veterans. And I stopped in Spain and ran into a gentleman from Norway. And we'd been out running around for 2 weeks, working hard. And we were just having a down day at a resort in Spain, and this gentleman from Norway walked up and introduced himself. He says, I know who you are. I said, you do? He said, yep. He said, you're huge in Norway. And so I came home and called my manager, and he started researching and said, look, we need to go there and do a tour. So we went over, and I think we started in Glasgow and worked our way to London and on over to Norway and stuff as we went. But it was amazing to me how many people knew the music and how far they would travel to come to these venues And even though they didn't look like the amphitheaters over here, they were smaller venues and theaters and stuff like that. I think the one in Oslo held 8,000 people, but it was neat that many people were in there and knew all your music, and that was a thrill.
We're currently building up towards a large festival that takes place in March over here, a large country music festival. Talking to our listeners about who they would like to see, and Toby Keith's name is a regular on that list of people. Can we hold out any hope of you coming back, Toby? Is that on the cards?
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that festival in March, but I usually come while I finish my tour in October here. And I usually come over there while we're still up and running. So I finish my tour in the States in October, and then I usually come over there and work in a November setting. But it won't stop me from coming. I'll absolutely come back. It's just in March I'm not running. I don't start back up till June. In March I'm usually recording the album that we're going to put out next October.
Toby, whenever you come back, we would welcome you, open arms, believe me. People are looking forward to your new album. By the way, I've mentioned the title. It comes out, I don't think we've mentioned it comes out in 9th of October.
Yeah, I believe it's on the 9th, maybe 10th.
Toby, I'm aware that I'm kind of fast running out of time here. Is there anything you'd like to say to the guys over here in the UK, just to round this off, really?
Well, we really love country music fans, and it's been a lifelong goal for artists from the States to be able to branch out and go over there and play. And it's neat that they're accepting it. It's wonderful that they're accepting it, and that we can continue to. Hopefully, we can keep that growing, and we're glad to have them listening. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking to me, Toby. And just a last thing, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're about to become a granddad again.
Yeah, she was working on her album, and she said, I'm going to slow down this year and have a child, and she's due in about 2 weeks, and then she'll once she gets settled in, she'll go right back to recording again. And I was told in a previous interview that UK iTunes and places like that are not carrying her, so you can get her music in the States, but I'm going to as soon as I get done with these interviews today, I'm going to call and get that fixed, because she's supposed to be on iTunes everywhere. Yeah,
we play the music, and occasionally we get asked where we can get it from, and it would be nice if it was available worldwide. Wouldn't it?
She's a lot more traditional than it's really difficult in the States for a female to get played on the radio, so that's a struggle in itself for all females. But she's more traditional classic country. She's young and loves traditional. Her grandmother, my mother, sang that kind of music, and she likes that kind of music, and she don't care whether she's a hit or not. She's like, I'm not gonna do this modern stuff. She says, I'm gonna sing classic country and live with my audience. So I was like, well, perfect. So that's what she does. She sings a little more classic country than you would normally hear from a young lady.
Nice to hear, I have to say. And congratulations once again on your forthcoming third grandchild. I think as a granddad myself, I know what pleasure that brings into somebody's life. So.
Well, I started having kids when I was a kid, so it became it was bound to happen that my kids were going to do it too. It's I didn't know that 20 years after I started my career, I'd look up and my kids would start having kids too. But it's pretty cool because you put them down when you're done with them. You don't have. I can hang with them. They get fussy. I can just give them back.
I absolutely agree with you. I can see some songs coming your way, though. There's got to be some inspiration there, my friend.
There'll have to be. There'll have to be some songs there.
Toby, once again, I'm aware that your time is limited. Thank you so much for talking.
You're more than welcome. Call anytime.
Thank you again so much for your time.
All right, my pleasure. Bye-bye.
We play more music every hour, every day. Turn on, tune in to Country Radio.